Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh is chairman of the Constitutional Review Committee. We've got Justice Sophia Adenyera, a member. We've got Professor Kwame Kakari, who's also a member. Former Electoral Commission boss, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, who's also a member of the committee. We've got Dr. Godwin Jokoto, Dr. Reina Akumpregia. I hope I got that name right. He's a secretary to the review committee. We've got Dr. AC Ansah, who's also a member, and Ibrahim Tanko Amidu. So it's an 8-member committee, and they've also got a reference that's been clearly stated by the president. And I'm going to read that to you shortly. But before that, let me introduce to you Kofi Tonto, who speaks for the New Patriotic Party. He's also a close aide to former Vice President Dr. Mamadou Bawumia. I saw him in some shots over the weekend. I think the executive director of the Africa Continental Free Trade Organization paid a courtesy call on the former Vice President, Wamkele. Is that right? Right. Okay, so Kofi, good to have you.
Yeah, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Kofi.
I like your suit.
You like my jacket? Thank you very much.
The blue shirt, very nice.
Thank you.
The latest, is it MD or CEO?
Yes, he's a chief executive.
I just took over from him.
You know, Edwigi, I'm not a happy person.
Oh, you're not?
I am one of the people Edwigi should have called by now.
Oh, Edwigi.
To at least inform me.
Oh.
I had to see it on Facebook. Solo, it's inappropriate. Yeah, you have to apologize.
I'm sorry.
You should have called him.
I'm sorry.
You know, I have a picture of him and lawyer Kwesi.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
It's okay. It's okay.
But you're happy for him.
Ewa was my call mate. So.
Oh, okay.
Of course. Edwigi is a brother, and I'm sincerely excited for him. I know he's going to do well. He has the competencies, so I have absolutely no doubt that he will perform. And he has to perform, like I said last week. The NDC must succeed, and we have to help them succeed. So, Edwigi, all the best. It's going to be a very challenging space. I mean, this is the mafia space. So you really have to be up to task and make sure you don't get easily swayed.
Before you came, I was saying that I will need your 2 eyes as my back eye.
Oh, right. Certainly.
Yes.
Certainly.
So that
certainly.
I know my back will be covered. Certainly. I mean, that's very important.
Yeah. Right.
And I say this with all humility. I mean, God in his wisdom could have given us 1 eye in front, 1 behind. But he wants us to appreciate our limits as people, as human. And so I'll need yours to provide that cover for me.
Certainly. So provided you listen. See, that's one thing you may ask.
No, I've learned a lot from. No, I learned a lot from Nanado.
Akufo-Addo was a listening government. Okay, that's how much I can tell you. He wasn't Ethiopia. He was a listening president. But anyways, you know, Kwesi.
Yes.
I'm not one to determine for any media house their editorial discretion. I think all media houses have every right to exercise their editorial discretion. You know, in art and even graphic design, a blank page in itself is a design.
Right.
So when a media house omits to comment or table a certain major issue to be discussed, it's also an editorial decision. And for me, this is perhaps the biggest morning show in the country. And I think TV3 should have discussed the issue that happened in Obuasi. It should have been one of the major topics this morning. And so for that not to be discussed, I find it quite interesting. Again, I respect all your editorial decisions. But as a Ghanaian, I have a right to exercise my discretion as well to say that it is absolutely not right. I mean...
What do you want to talk about, Kofi?
No, my point is, people have lost their lives.
Oh, you're talking about Obuasi?
Obuasi.
Okay.
People have lost their lives. Look, Joseph Yamin was in Obuasi yesterday with some executives. And I think I listened to Joseph Yamin, and his comments were excellent, telling the party members that their brothers who were killed shouldn't be the basis for them to go and engage in any further acts of illegalities. And I think it's something we have to discuss, especially when TV3 championed illegal mining issues the last 3-4 months. So please, it's very, very important. What happened in Obuasi cannot happen again. You see, Anglo-Gold is an export earner. You know, by our laws, when they ship out the gold, they have 30 days to bring back at least 80% of the gold they have sold. It's what we use to augment our efforts to support our city. So when an act like this happens, it affects our currency as well. Aside from the investor confidence, that will also suffer. So we have to condemn what happened in Obuasi, and I'll charge TV3 to take this issue seriously, especially when a member of your TV or media company is on record to have told the young people in Obuasi to go into the mines.
Really?
Yes. A member of your company, a journalist from your company.
Yeah, find out. When was this statement?
Several months ago.
No, but you see,
that was what I was going to ask.
You see,
you know,
the challenge here is that, I mean, you found a way of introducing the topic. Yeah. That's fine. And I know you do this cleverly. You see,
I'm talking.
I just thought that intervention is important.
Yes.
You see, whatever statement that was made, it's not contemporaneous.
What's the purpose of this big initiative?
It's not contemporaneous with the events that happened. So that the suggestion to try to link what possibly might have been said several months ago to an event that happened barely yesterday, if not put in proper context, will put whoever the journalist is in a very bad light.
It could be very bad. I would have agreed with you. But specific comments were made and specific companies were mentioned.
Kofi, you know what? The reason I don't want us to personalize this is
I'm not personalizing.
I mean, it's good you've raised this point.
I didn't mention any name.
No, but you're saying that a member of our news team, a member of this company.
Yes.
And you say this company
is reported to have made certain statements, insightful statements.
Yes.
But we do not know when the statement was made.
Okay.
And that was a question I asked you.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us exactly when?
I don't know exactly when
so
he made the statement, but he made the statement.
To link that
on Ras Mubarak's page.
Hold on. To link that statement to what happened yesterday could be a bit of an overstretch.
And it's even when it is not like contemporaneous.
It's what the person
I see what cleverly my brother is trying to do to create an impression of incitement.
I disagree with you because you see, you have come onto a show.
Yeah.
They have given you a topic. Your duty is to discuss that topic.
Okay.
And leave the rest.
When you spoke about Alan, was that part of the topic you were giving?
You made a
when you spoke about Alan, was that part of the topic you were giving?
A specific.
Please.
You are saying that this your topic should have been part of what was to be discussed this morning. And I'm saying that you should have given them the benefit of that. You don't know their strategy for the day. You give them the benefit of that. After all, it's not only New Day that they discuss issues.
Did you hear what I said?
I listened to you carefully. You said it's a topical issue. It should have been part of the issues to be discussed this morning. Yes. And I'm saying you don't come from your house and come and dictate what they should discuss here. You have been unfair to them.
Dictate.
That is what you're saying.
No. Clearly you didn't listen.
No, I listened to you.
I said they have editorial discretion.
Yes.
And I'm also exercising my right as a citizen to express my view on their editorial.
No, but if you were all going to come from our house,
what are you talking about? You came here and dictated the topic.
No,
so you dictated the topic.
I only pass the comment. You are only saying this will not be allowed.
We can move on. No, we can move on.
He has come to set his own question.
I don't have a problem. I'm not setting my question. You set your question.
You have a problem.
But
thank you.
We can. Thank you very much. I've said my piece. I've said my mind.
Thank you.
No, this is not propaganda. I expected you to at least say something. Your party members. I expected you to say something.
I appreciate your.
Let me push.
I even wanted a situation where I'll give an indication that HE, the president, John Dramani Mahama, once these matters came to his attention, has immediately, yes, with speed and purpose, asked that the matter be thoroughly investigated. I would not want to pass judgment.
Oh, I see.
Once the matter is under investigation.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Look, people have lost families, breadwinners. There's a company also involved. The issues are very weighty. Imagine I sit here and just say, oh, the company, quote unquote, killed these people and say like, and then leave it without the benefit of knowing exactly what the details are. And like my national organizer, Joseph Yamin, rightly pointed out, we want to express our deepest condolence to the persons who have lost their lives and their families. There will be an investigation. I would not, with the greatest respect, having learned from the lessons of the past, clear either the Ghana Armed Forces or the persons, even before the benefit of an investigative report. You know, in the past, we've had a situation where leadership will clear individuals involved in such matters, even before reports are generated. I've learned from that.
You know, because what's
okay, gentlemen, I think we can move on.
Last week, last week,
it's okay.
What did you say about Kufuor and the Techiman?
We can
what did you say?
Gentlemen, let's make progress now.
Now, Kwesi, let's progress. No, please, enough of your interruptions. Kwesi, let's continue. Let me commend President Mahama for the decision to initiate the process of a constitutional review.
Oh, well, you've got to hold on for me there. Okay. I'll come back on that. So, just to put matters in context, we know that the president has set up a constitutional review committee, and that announcement came out sometime over the weekend, and the committee has a terms of reference. Now, what they expected to do is to identify and address gaps and challenges with the implementation of the previous constitutional review work done by the 2010 Constitution Review Commission and the 2023 Constitution Review Consultative Committee. Now, they've also been tasked to engage key stakeholders to solicit their views on the proposals for amendment of the 1992 Constitution and make actionable recommendations aimed at enhancing democratic governance in the country. And so that's essentially what their terms of reference is. And just a while ago, I gave you a list of those who have been constituted as part of the team to be led by the executive director of the CDD Ghana, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying that I commend President Mahama for that initiative. You know, President Mills set up a committee. I know in 2023, a committee was also set up to do some work.
Yeah.
I don't know about President Kufuor, but I know President Mills, President Kufuor, they've all done some work in this regard. So it's definitely a decision in the right step, because we've all been talking about the Constitution for a very long time. In fact, His Excellency, the former Vice President, Dr. Alhaj Mahmoud Bawumia, in his manifesto, pledged that he wanted to review the Constitution to change the focus of it towards creating a society that we all want. So it is absolutely in the right decision that President Mahama wants to do that. And then he's giving them 5 months. What I don't know is that, is he expecting that the 5 months will be enough to do all the consultations, agree on the document, go through parliamentary processes and all of that, and go through the amendments? I don't know. Or the 5 months, because from what I read, it looks at they have to go back and review the other documents prior and identify gaps and close them. What is even more refreshing is the team he assembled. You know, H. Kwesi Prempeh is someone I have vehemently disagreed with on platforms, especially social media, vehemently. But it doesn't change the fact that he's one of the most competent persons we have in this country.
One of the finest.
One of the finest, especially constitutional review issues, democratic issues, etc. Madam Sophia Adinyira, former Supreme Court Justice, excellent brain. I think Professor Kakari,
Yes.
and then and all of them. Quite a balanced team. Even though Edigi, there was the young guy who's the secretary. I don't know how true it is, but I've seen a flyer of him in contesting for a position in the NDC or something. But nevertheless, I read his background, a very astute lawyer with a PhD in law, meaning that he also has what it takes to do the job. So generally, I think the team is a solid team, and we must support them to succeed. Yesterday, I put up a post on my Facebook wall that they have a mandate to aggregate the views of Ghanaians. The things majority of Ghanaians believe in are social, cultural values, the things that will enhance our social cohesion. And I want, and I do so with all humility that I can muster, that this must not be a committee that's going to pursue their own beliefs and ideologies. Because we've debated some of them and we know the personal ideologies they hold. So they must not use this as a platform to pursue their personal ideologies. And we also know there are Western institutions lurking who want to infiltrate and determine for us what our cultural values and norms should be. They must be very careful.
What's your suspicion?
No, I don't want to go into anything. I want to give them the benefit of doubt.
Okay.
But what I want to say is that they must be very careful that they don't engage in what we call extreme rights consciousness. If you take time and read on it, anyone listening to me, there's a concept called extreme rights consciousness. When people are giving so much rights to the detriment of social cohesion. Ghana, we have our way of life. We have the things we believe in. We can learn from other countries. America has so many great things we can take from other countries, etc. But that must not in any way, shape, or form mean that Western ideologies will supersede our values and cultural norms. So I want to commend them. I want to wish them all the best. I want them to succeed. We must have a new constitution that reflects what our aspirations are. Growing up in America, one thing I learned was the pursuit of happiness. It's a fulcrum of the American society that as an everyday American, the union may never be perfect, but you must pursue happiness.
Personal liberties.
Personal liberties, etc. So one thing I want the document to come out with is that aspiration. What's that Ghanaian aspiration that they want us to pursue? They must give us that aspiration that young people coming up, all of us can pursue. That as a Ghanaian, this is a value, this is an aspiration from cradle to grave that you must pursue. I think they will do a fine job. I wish them all the best. Madame Charlotte Osei, Professor Kakari. I forgot the other names, but the ones that I've mentioned, and all of them, I think, have what it takes to give us the document we are looking for. So a decision in the right direction. Kudos to President Mahama, and we wish all of them the best of luck.
Thanks, Kofi. Let me hear from you, Solomon.
Well, I have a totally different opinion about what has happened, in the sense that on the 11th of January 2010, when the late Professor Mills, may he so rest in peace, was establishing the Constitutional Review Committee, he tasked them with the same mandate. I mean, nobody in this country can convince me that Professor Albert K. Fiajo was not an astute professor. In fact, he's a professor emeritus when it comes to public law. And the content or the membership of that committee, well, people of stature. Talk about Apia Minka representing the New Patriotic Bloc, or Saberima, the Uguamahini, Osaberima, the Uguamahini, you are talking about Kumbuna, Yiri, and all these people.
I think about representation.
About representation. So,
I think it's
if you are talking
point.
about the Constitutional Review of 2010, it was so balanced with people that were knowledgeable.
Yeah, I get your point.
And they did a fantastic job. A fantastic job. In fact, we were on the roadmap to getting our Constitution reviewed. When they submitted their report on the 20th of December 2011, what they said as part of their recommendation, that they knew that 2012 was an election year, and so it was going to be difficult to implement their recommendation, and that they should wait for the next president, that's 2013, to implement. So I believe that we missed the opportunity of implementing what Ghanaians thought was the right way, our constitution, or the form that our constitution should take. I did not know what prevented then President Mr. Mahama from implementing what was contained in the Constitutional Review Committee's report. I've read it, beautiful. The suggestions, government also came in with their own responses to a lot of issues. You understand? Mind you, we expended $6.3 million for these committee members. For that job.
Wow.
To be collating views and to be looking at gaps within the Constitution. They traveled outside the country, they traveled inside the country. And so for me, if there is going to be anything at all, Professor Fiajo, I don't remember he's dead. He's still alive.
He's still alive, yeah.
With the exception of probably Mr. Apiaminka. The rest of the members are still alive. Now, fast forward to the 28th of April 2023, when the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs established their consultative review.
Right.
There again, the members, some of whom were members of the Constitutive Assembly in 1992, also did their work. It costed the country about 3 million Ghana cedis or so. So add that to the $6.3 million that I've already spoken about. Go and look at their conclusions. It's not a distinct departure from
what we had earlier.
So if I look at the terms of reference of this committee, they are to go and what? Identify.
Gaps.
Let's say identify what gaps and challenges with implementation. So to my mind, if this is their terms of reference, then the people who are better placed to do this job are those that did the 2010 Constitutional Review or formed the 2010 Constitutional Review Committee, and those of 2023, let them come what actually worked against your effort in implementing this Constitution. When you
Maybe they'll be invited.
So I think
Maybe some of them will be invited.
No, but all these members you are talking about, they played a pivotal role in these periods. Professor H. that submitted his views, all members who are with it. So for me, it's more or less like starting everything all over. When we have expended so much,
I get you.
$6.3 million is not a joke. $3 billion only last 2 years is not a joke. And we are a country that do not have enough, as we have been told. Unless there is so much money, you just came out of power, so you can tell me more. That there's so much money sitting there that you come and lie to us. But the truth of the matter is that...
Are you introducing a new topic?
No, it's not a new topic. I only asked. This morning,
you go ahead.
Why were you late? You have to find out. I'm beginning to suspect you.
I was in traffic.
So, I believe that I am not so much comfortable with introducing totally new elements. Well, like the institutional memory. I mean, we have to begin to do things differently. Where we got to was implementation. As for the views, opinions of people reaching out to people, it has been done. The consultation has been done.
I get you.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this time around, it must not be business as usual. For so long, we have been talking about the fact that whether or not the president should pay taxes. We all agree.
I'll come back to both of you to find out exactly which elements within the Constitution you think should be reviewed. But, Eduji, let me take your preliminary thoughts on this. Solomon seems to raise very pertinent issues and concerns. I mean, this is something we saw being done under President Mills. It continued through under Nana Akufo-Addo. Over $6 million spent on all these, and then we're having to come back to do something again like this. Of course, it's not a refresher. It's just trying to consolidate what has happened in the past, identify gaps, and the challenges moving forward.
Okay, so as Riley pointed out, I have a personal association with the Constitution Review work. Because then, as a student at the law faculty, now the Ghana Law School, University of Ghana. I was one of the persons recruited to do the facilitation as a young student then. At that time,
you've been around for long.
Yes, that was 2010.
You see, Edwiji, I admire so much for his age and the work
He's only
he has
42
done.
years.
Yeah, and the work he has done. You know, it's commendable.
Thank you.
Hey,
So,
let
me proceed.
You this team, you this panel member. I love all of you. You're so funny and interesting.
Your fans cannot be
Always taking it
because there could be something behind.
Always taking a dig at each other.
So, in 2010, then in the faculty, Professor Raymond Atugba as executive secretary, with Professor Fiajo, as you rightly pointed out, when Professor Mills put up the initial review commission together, I was part of the facilitators in Greater Accra. So what we did was to go to the various communities, do community engagement, ask, for instance, constitutional term limits, what should be done, the issue of death penalty, and many other issues came up. Now, if you recall, after the death of Professor Mills, when HE President Mahama took over, he set up the Professor Evio Dankwa Implementation Committee.
Under who?
Under President Mahama. That's why a lot of people don't know. So President Mahama then, because then the commission's work had come out, he put up, there was a white paper. So now we came to the phase of implementation. And so what happened was that he then put up Professor Evio Dankwa Committee to ensure the implementation. Now, there were two issues. So, for instance, there are clauses that requires referendum. There are clauses that requires parliamentary 2/3. And so, the question is, how do we proceed? And that became an implementational issue. Now, because it became an implementational issue, there were some schools of thought that you have to come to Parliament for Parliament to ensure the amendment of those specific clauses that are non-entrenched. And for the entrenched clauses, you needed referendum to do that. So just when the matter went to Council of State, went to Parliament, there were serious debates. Then Professor Kwekwa, there is the distinguished Kwekwa law professor, then said, look, he had an issue with the mode of implementation among many other things. So he issued a writ at the Supreme Court. And so from 2015, the matter had been at the Supreme Court until the matter was decided. Now, because there were clauses that involves referendum, then 2016 election came. Now, you are going to burden the Electoral Commission with doing the District Assembly election, going to run a referendum, and also the 2016 presidential and parliamentary election. And so that is where the implementation suffered the stalling. Then HE lost the 2016 election. So the expectation was that since there was already an implementation committee led by Professor Evio Dankwa, the then Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration would have just taken it up from there and see what we could do. But what the president, then former President Nana Addo, did was to select a few of the provision for that purpose. For instance, the election of MMDs, whether it should be... We had our view. And so it was to have that. So what the president then did was to choose specifics. Pick and choose what provision and how to go. And they started first with the issue of the election, whether it should be on partisan lines or you select maybe 3, you give it to the president, they go through an electoral process. There were others who also felt that, hey, if Kofi Tonto becomes the Accra mayor by way of an election and is, quote, an MPP person, would he want to work to ensure that the president achieves his
so
vision?
that went to Parliament and suffered a defeat.
because of the Supreme Court.
Wasn't that one that the local government minister went through a whole process?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're supposed to even vote.
No, so that is why I'm saying that what the president did was to choose specific aspects
which included the
implementation.
MMDCs, whether or not they should be voted.
Exactly. So instead of taking a holistic view, it didn't. Then I realized that subsequently, my learned senior, Clara Kasati, my tax law lecturer, they came out with another committee. I think it was chaired by her or something.
Yeah, it was chaired
by her. That's true, yes.
They also, it's work in progress. You see, I've always said, in the superior wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, what they had in mind was that they were creating a constitution that is organic in nature. So that the views expressed in 1993 compared to today, the views have changed dramatically. And so, if you want to live with this constitution, it becomes problematic. Now, if you pick the U.S. Constitution, which is over 200 years, how many amendments have they done? I think 24.
I'm not
or
sure
25 or something.
So it's gone through periods of modification.
But you see, what they have done in the U.S. is that they have used a very strong U.S. Supreme Court to effect the amendments. So the original U.S. Constitution, 1775 or so, is not what you have today. The court has intervened and done most of the amendments. And so you see in the U.S., they will say the Fifth Amendment, so amendment. That is what they have done. It's true, our courts have also intervened cleverly in some of the engineering. But we wanted a holistic. I do not think our court, for instance, can wake up tomorrow and say, the term limit for the president, it's no longer going to be 2 years, 2 terms, sorry, but you can do 4 or 5. We need all of us to have that conversation. Or we can even say that we need to have a conversation that you do only 1 term, but 7 years, like President Kufuor at that time envisioned, that he prefers continuous 7 years than the break. So 27 amendments. So you can imagine, in 240 something years, they have only done 27 amendment to the Constitution. But the courts in the U.S. have intervened. Now, because we believe, and we took the American formulation, that our Constitution is organic, with the capacity to grow, and with growing expectation, our people, I am not sure that, you want a situation where a group of people can just sit in a room and say, we decide. And that's where I come to personal views. This one, the views of all of us have already been collated, facilitated. And so it is not going to be like we are now going to start
reinvent
all over.
Like he mentioned.
And so your concern about cost and others will be taken care of. In terms of the composition, with the greatest respect and with all humility, if you pick somebody like Kwesi Prempeh, his work as CDD is notorious. In fact, he had disagreed with the views of the NDC. And he had equally done that with the NPP. So he comes to the committee with a mind that I think is open. You cannot start a constitution review process.
Even Professor Kakari, he's been quite critical of the NDC.
No, so I'm just coming there. So you cannot have a conversation that right from the beginning you are prejudicial. This is about taking the views of the generality of our people and also going back to previous works that has already been done and put it together for the purpose of implementation. HE, the president, has 4 years mandate. The campaign promise was specific, that will lead the amendment of the constitution process. And he is determined to ensure that for the first time, we'll conclude the conversation on this matter. I remember when he first gave this promise, our friends in the NPP said, but you were president, you were vice president when the conversation first started. What have you done about it? And I remember on this same platform making the point that it is not as though HE the president reneged on the work that could have been done, but for that Supreme Court court process. That is what stalled it. And by the time the work was done, we were into the 2016 election. And that's what brought about the challenge. This time round, with the Supreme Court having dismissed the matter in 2015, and with no roadblock, with a bipartisan support from our friends in the NPP, I am very confident that H.E. John Dramani Mahama is going to get this campaign promise fulfilled. And the provision that requires either referendum or parliamentary, whatever it is, thankfully, God has blessed the NDC so much that we should be able to count where the need be, at least 182 with the independent and the support of Afri-American, is it a mini micro minority? With their support, we should be able to get this constitutional, because those that require parliamentary intervention, we will. Those require the intervention of a referendum, we should be. And so I'm very confident. And the team of people that have been put together, Professor Kakari, as you pointed out, the Media Foundation for West Africa, they have always championed the issue of media freedom, the protection of media men, among other things. We want to have a conversation about the media and its role in our democracy. What form should it be? Already the Constitution does not allow for censorship, but people have expressed concern that you do not also want to have a situation where anything can just be said. We need to protect. So what should be the conversation around the media? He will bring huge insight, huge experience from other jurisdictions. Her ladyship, Justice Sophia Adingra, distinguished.
There's one
jurist.
Dr. A.C. Ansah also.
Yeah, the Dr. A.C. Ansah, and the Professor Godwin Jokoto. Right. He taught me at the law faculty as well. Even my LLM, he taught me at the LLM level. Very distinguished. My own very good brother, Dr. Rena, very good guy. And I think he is going to be secretary member to the committee. The 5 months, I'm confident that they'll be able to wrap up their work and submit whatever report that there is to H.E. the President for this constitution to be amended. 32 years, right? 32 years. Yeah, 32 years. I think that we've gathered a lot of experience that we can all bring to the table to ensure if the constitution as structured now is not what we want, we can have a conversation. I mean, a Gen Z generation, they have their own expectation about how. And one of the issues during our initial work was that people felt that this constitution, as we find it now, was tailor-made. And so now they want a constitution that is more developmental.
Yes.
And so,
that's the argument Dr. Baumian raised.
Exactly. So they want a constitution that is, I mean, because we're on the field, doing the field work, one of the critiques was that, the constitution was tailor-made for for Chairman Rawlings. And so there was some greater concentration of power in one individual. Thankfully, all other persons have benefited from the concentration.
People like Editorial were part of the Consultative Assembly.
Yes, and in fact, I remember it's one of the things that my chairman always uses. I said, look, we're the people who put this constitution together with hairdressers and what have you. Right. But, like I pointed out, one of the major critiques is that this constitution is not developmental oriented. And so we needed a constitution that will focus more on development. And that what we have currently was more about executive-led.
Would you call it protectionist?
No, you see, because let me come in.
Maybe. I wouldn't say it is protectionist, but the critique has always been that it was tailor-made. And that now we should focus more on development.
Hold on. Kofi, I'll find out from you which areas of the Constitution you think are not fit for purpose, with our current dispensation. But a lot of the times when parties are in opposition, you hear them talk a lot about the negatives of the Constitution. How come power is so much vested, enormous power is vested in one man, which is executive president, and so they call for constitutional reforms. But just when they get into power, like Eddie said, they are seen to be enjoying the benefits of what they criticized. And for somebody like Nana Akufo-Addo, who has championed our democracy, is known as a freedom fighter, you would imagine why he would have 8 years and not push for a holistic review of the Constitution, but only to look at it from a very narrow point of view, which was, in the election of MMDCs. Why would he do that?
You see, first of all, we can go back to why anyone did what. It won't really solve the issue. And that is why when I started commenting, I commended President Mahama.
Yes.
Because you see, I wanted to demystify the issue and take the politics out. But the moment I begin to answer why President Akufo-Addo didn't do the holistic thing that you are referencing, I can equally go back and say that yes, the NDC had a legal issue, but they also had ATS. They could have done it. The bottom line is that it's being done. Let's all champion the fact that it is being done. And let's support that decision so it becomes successful. Now, on the point that I wanted to make, look, I think we all criticize the Constitution, but I think sometimes we have to be fair to what it has also been able to achieve. Largely, the Constitution has entrenched our democracy. The very things that people may even see to be excessive powers to the executive may have their benefits as to why we are benefiting or we still have the democracy we have. You see, when you have a teething democracy, it's important that you put in place certain clauses to protect it. I think the Constitution perhaps has lived or has outlived its usefulness. But that is not to say that it wasn't useful at any point. It served its purpose by entrenching the democracy. Now it has outlived its purpose. Let's bring in the relevant aspects of what we have become as a society. Because the Constitution is a living document, really. So it's always going to grow. Even when we have a new Constitution, I challenge you that 5 years later, there may be a need for amendments again. You get what I'm saying?
Are we seeing true and effective separation of powers?
But that's what we are doing.
Checks and balances. Is it about time, we review that aspect that allowed for, a certain percentage of ministers to come from Parliament?
So for me, I think we've had a reasonable level of checks and balances. Yes, of course, there are excesses. But let's not create the impression that we haven't had. The Supreme Court, yes, with all their challenges, have been fairly decent in their job. The executive have had several challenges, but they've also done their bit. Parliament, several challenges, they've done their bit. And that's why I said the Constitution is a living document. It's going to continue to grow. So yes, we've had some degree of separation of powers, but then that linkage between the executive and Parliament by way of the executive having to appoint 50% out of Parliament, I think it has its challenges. I think if we get to a point where we can separate it, it will be helpful. But we need to really look at it very carefully. Last week I came here and I debated the issue of optics and substance. We shouldn't do things just because we want to do it, just because people are speaking against it. And that is why I think this committee must do the right job and say that, okay, we've asked the president to take 50% of his ministers from Parliament. Is there any value in that decision? Has it really been helpful? Can we glean something out of it? Or overall, we haven't benefited, so we should scrap it? That is the level of work I'm expecting the committee to do, and shouldn't be a blanket wholesale of this is not good because everybody is saying it's not good. No, that wouldn't help us. So I think we have a living document. It's going to grow even after this amendments that we are going to do. And so we should cherish the work the 1992 Constitution has done, abate its challenges. I think it's done some good to Ghana.
So look, on the issue of appointment, should the president, for instance, continue to appoint the Inspector General of Police? I mean, largely since 1992, we've seen some state institutions, the heads of some state institutions, enjoy security of tenure, like that of the Electoral Commission boss, for instance. I mean, he worked across political parties until, in the last government where we saw the EC boss being removed from office, which some refer to as an assault on our democracy. Should we begin to tinker all these things?
Yeah, we need to do that, especially when our body politics is so polarized. When a president appoints, it creates the impression to party supporters that it is the president or the party that brought the person to power, so they can do anything that pleases them. So we need to think about it. Because you can also not do it in isolation. You must also bear in that the president also needs security. He has to be sure of those that are protecting him. Right. So there has to be a balance. If the president is going to appoint, then we must have a strong council, police council, that would, as it were, give the policy direction to the IGP to be operating. That seems not to be the case, because if you go to the police council as well and look at the composition, it's as though it's an offshoot of the government. If there is something that could be done to the various councils managing these institutions, that is where we can have some liberations. Either than that, it will continue to be business as usual, with provisions like whether or not the president must pay taxes. He has to.
Oh, you think he has to?
Why do you think so?
Why? You are equality before the law. You are saying that the president is as equal as me. Leadership by example. The ordinary man is paying taxes. Why are you not paying taxes? So that if you pay taxes, mind you, policies emanate from cabinet. So that if you are bringing obnoxious taxes to parliament, you, the president, will also be, as it were, engaging or encountering the same sort of hardship that ordinary people will be going through. So I believe the president must be paying taxes. The last time they did the constitutional review in 2010, if you read some of the reports, I was not happy with how they wanted to smuggle homosexuality into our constitution.
Really? Which?
No, the constitutional review, one of them was that they shouldn't make it a law, but rather the Supreme Court at any given time must be the one to determine cases involving homosexuality. The Ghanaian cultural values and norms about it. So it must be clear, stated clear, that Tumu will not be accepted into our constitution. And no matter what, and I like the angle you came from, that external pressure must not force, I don't know whether external pressure forced you people not to sign anyway, must not force anyone to smuggle that provision into our constitution. Now the issue of the National Development Planning Commission, we have to take it very, very serious. The role they play in our governance structure. There seems not to be continuity. This government comes in, brings
But how do you have a functioning National Development Planning Commission when you have a very polarized political system like ours? How does it work?
That is why their role, I am for independence of the National Development Planning Commission.
So that they enjoy security of tenure.
Absolutely.
So we have very neutral or balanced people.
Exactly.
On that.
And then also a focused policy. That you cannot just come. America as a country has a foreign policy. You can't just come today and say you have changed your foreign policy. It is there. What is our national agenda? That national agenda must be pushed by the National Development Planning Commission and not by partisan politics. Can you imagine if we had the National Development Planning Commission whose policy direction was for free SHS? It is there for everyone to know that this is where the country...
So the difference will be with the implementation.
Absolutely. So we need them to operate and operate effectively. And also how we rope in our chiefs to play a very pivotal role in our governance structure. How is it that the president can, as it were, give out licenses for mining leases and so on and so forth without the approval of traditional authorities?
The custodians.
Because they are the custodians. Someone is in my village. The chief is there. The next time he sees someone comes from Accra with a license that have been given a license to come and mine in your area without the chief's involvement. So we need to make them an active participant in our governance structure. And any other, as for the MMDCs, it's been discussed for all when God knows, since 1996. Everyone promises that when we come, we will elect them. But I like a proposal that was put forward, that amongst the party, if you don't want it, that wholesale, elections, if it is MVP or NDC or Movement for Change that is in power, because we are going to come to power in 2028, let us nominate, put forward.
Who will be your candidate?
Mr. Alanchemate, 5 personalities.
So you
understand?
You are already selecting Alanchemate without allowing.
Are you not selecting Baumia for MPP now?
Without for a
with this abysmal performance, you are even trying to force it onto the people, the MPP.
Why don't you like this? Why don't
This abysmal performance never seen in our history.
See the violence.
He
wants to distract me. I'm not going to allow that. No.
Let's talk about abysmal performance. Let's talk about abysmal performance.
Your candidate is running.
Even 40,000 votes you couldn't get.
Yesterday when they were looking for him at
Even 40,000 votes you couldn't get.
He couldn't go.
Even 40,000 votes you couldn't get.
The man is so
Cheddar.
No.
Your man spent close to $1 billion Ghana cedis. If I had spent $1 billion Ghana cedis, I would have gotten more than 45%. I would have beaten. If I had spent $1 billion out Baumiade, I would have gotten more votes.
It's a complete lie.
So the truth of the matter is that
Thank you. Go ahead.
you understand. We need to rope in the chiefs and get all of them involved. In terms of, I was talking about the MMDCs.
Yeah.
A party puts forward like 5 names.
You've got to make this snappy for me because I like us to look at the
These
final
5 names
issue
must go
about
through the Public Service Commission to be interviewed and pruned down to 3 or 2 so that we vote for any of them.
Okay, that's fine. Let me hear you.
Rendition.
I think that, I mean, there's a certain consensus even on this table what the way forward should be. And like I said, we did a facilitation in Greater Accra. I remember in those days. The controversial issues, the issue about the president paying tax, I mean, there was that level of overwhelming. I mean, the ordinary person wants them
to pay tax.
Yeah, the ordinary person wants the president to be associated with the experience they are going through. You also have a situation about whether the president, the majority of his ministers should come from Parliament.
Right.
And the constitutionalists were of the view that if we want to achieve real separation of powers, and the member of Parliament is a member of the executive, how is he going to check himself? Do you get it?
They all want to catch the eye of the president. And so,
exactly. So the truer sense of checks and balance may not be achieved when you have a situation where the people that the president is appointing are supposed to be the people to check him. But again, you cannot have true separation. I remember U.S. Supreme Court Justice Frankfurter, many years, about 80 years ago, make the point that you want to look for separateness, but interdependence, so that you can achieve a working relationship with the 3 arms of government. You want to find out. The other issue had to do with whether or not there should be a limit to the number of Supreme Court justices. The U.S. Constitution does not place limits or a cut. But in America, they have agreed that they will maintain only the 9.
By convention.
And so, therefore, replacement of the 9 is always a contentious matter in U.S. Extremely contentious political issue. You understand? Because of the things associated with the justices of the Supreme. So that is a matter that came out strongly. Must we place a limit to the number? If you recall, even when Joe Biden became president of the United States of America, he quickly put together a committee to look at the U.S. Supreme Court. Do you know why? Because when he became president, the tilt was against the Democrats.
Right.
And so, Democrats in the U.S. said, Mr. President, will be disadvantaged. And so, at all costs, increase the numbers.
Yeah, they were pushing him.
Increase the numbers. But what he did was that he exercised a certain level of restraint. Even though his party people were putting pressure on him to increase and balance the U.S., the composition of the U.S. In fact, now it's about 6-3. You understand? 6-3. The Republicans have about 6, and the Democrats only have 3.
I don't know if this is a digression, but if even in America, people believe that merely because Trump appoints somebody to the Supreme Court is likely to
it's a huge
favor of Trump.
And you see, it is not a belief. It is not. It has moved from perception to reality.
So it means that the Supreme Court rules on political lines. Is that what it means?
Let me tell you. The issue, you recall, either the state of Colorado removed Donald Trump from the ballot.
Yeah.
Trump challenged that. And the matter became very highly. The state of Colorado also took the view that he should be taken off the ballot because of all this conversation. Incidentally, some of the Democratic, Jackson, the lady, took the view that no, it is not for the court to decide who goes on the ballot. And that by doing that, the court is effectively engineering the choice that the voter is faced with. And that will undermine the very spirit of the U.S. Constitution. Many of the others that Donald Trump was involved, the likes of Gorsuch and others who were Republicanly, all voted to reverse those lower court decisions, basically paving the way for. And so in the U.S., and if you read the commission's report to President Biden and the findings, there's no term limit. I mean, there's no limit. We in Ghana, for instance, ensures that our Supreme Court judges go on retirement at 70. The U.S., once you get there, until you die, you understand, or for any other reason. We 70, or when there are stated grounds on which you can be removed. Other than that, you are there. The issue of the Electoral Commission, until Mr. Akufo-Addo did the unthinkable of removing the chairperson, it was unheard of.
Absolutely.
It was unheard of that you could remove the chairperson of the Electoral Commission.
No matter how you disagreed with
Yes. I mean, just and Afarijan basically stayed over
the Chief Justice.
The decision ultimately lied with him.
Processes.
It's the process.
It's not a president that.
It means that the issue of perception has erased. You cannot entirely ignore the views or perception of Ghanaians,
of course,
when they think that Supreme Court decisions are going against their political party.
No, even in the U.S. it's even stronger. And I'll tell you something. Attorney General Garland, Merrick Garland, Judge Merrick Garland, at a point had to send U.S. Marshals to protect the Supreme Court judges. Yes. It got to a point where the Supreme Court judges were being protected by U.S. Marshals. Why? Because of the increasing threats on them.
So why are you lawyers?
Why do
you always try to make us believe the judges rule the law?
Because you see, like Oliver Wendell said, he said the life of the law is not logic, by experience.
Okay.
They are social engineering aspect of law. And globally, a Supreme Court is always considered to be a policy court. Always remember that in the Bible, the kings were the judges. Always remember that. The kings were the judges. It is so the work of the judge has always been part of an executive work, even from biblical point, Judeo-Christian. It was the king that passed judgment. Whose head will go was the king. Even us, traditionally, it was the king that sat in council. So they had two, executive and judicial work together. Until the likes of Montesquieu and co. started preaching that there must be true separations and others. But we've never had it the way we want. And so the conversation is not only in Ghana, in India. Look, the Indian Supreme Court had to decide on identity card. The violence that ensued subsequently was no joke. So it has been always a hot issue with politics. And that is why in the U.S., immediately you are appointed by the president or nominated, and you have to go through Senate confirmation through the Senate Judicial Committee to become a Supreme Court judge. Your political views are already known.
Yeah. You should have
currently in the U.S.
watched the
one of the U.S.
Kavanaugh,
and the women
it was very
even Jackson, Ketanji, and all the things that she went through. Currently in the U.S., because a U.S. Supreme Court judge had telephoned President Trump ahead of the inauguration, and that has become a hot issue in the U.S. as we speak. So it has always been so with our.
See, that's why I was saying that.
We've got to go now.
That's why I was saying that.
Oh, you know, I have a very good brother. Before quick. Godwin Mahama. Today, one of our communicators, top communicator. Today is his birthday. And my senior brother Jude Agbomaba.
Happy birthday, Godwin Mahama and Jude as well. Eduji, we're wishing you well. You want to say something quickly before we wrap up?
Everything Eduji said.
Just in 30 seconds.
Yeah, attest to the fact that I was saying that we shouldn't entirely condemn our constitution. Look.
No, it has really served us well.
It has really served us well.
If
you go to America, the banter you see between MPP and NDC is absolutely chicken change.
It's worse.
It's chicken change.
What we do here is not
Chicken change.
We are playing.
You know, so I think to a degree our constitution has served us well. Definitely,
and we salute Jerry Rawlings for giving us this constitution.
all the changes we have to do.
The midwife of the constitution.